Bonjour tout le monde, c'est Monsieur Série. J'ai eu l'honneur de pouvoir interviewer Monsieur Jeff Astrof, un créateur, scénariste de sitcom qui a commencé sur une petite série pas connue, Friends par exemple, qui a aussi travaillé sur Ground Floor, Angie Tribeca et dernièrement créateur, scénariste de Trial and Error sur NBC. J'ai parlé avec lui pendant près de 3/4 d'heure. On a parlé de sa carrière, beaucoup de Trial and Error, la saison 1, un peu l'avenir de la série qui vient juste de pitcher la saison 2 à NBC. Ce fut un grand plaisir. Je vous laisse écouter la retranscription de cette interview complètement en anglais. Je m'excuse encore une fois de mon anglais, j'ai fait le mieux que je peux, mais j'étais très stressé parce que voilà, c'est quand même quelqu'un de très important pour moi, fan de sitcom et de comédie. La retranscription donc va arriver avec un petit peu de temps, progressivement sur le blog. J'espère que ça vous plaira, je vous laisse écouter. Et à bientôt pour une autre interview, j'espère, avec d'autres personnes aussi intéressantes.
Frederick, how are you?
Good. A little bit nervous because it's quite my first time doing that.
Oh yeah.
So it's really an honor to have you because I'm a big fan of your work. So thank you for your time. What we are going to do is like really a casual conversation. You got the questions. I'm not going to add any surprise questions or anything.
It surprised me away. There's nothing that will surprise me.
Okay.
I've been doing this too long to be surprised. I said the only thing that surprises me is that I still get surprised.
Okay.
So.
I just wanted to know before we start, are you into the good mood, the mood not really so good with yesterday?
Okay, so we pitched season 2 yesterday, and it went as well as it could go. You know, everybody's excited about it. People love the show. You know, we say that there are two types of people who love the show and people who haven't seen the show. So our job is to get more people to see the show.
Exactly.
And it's happening. The show was designed. The show was designed for Netflix because it was. And I've mentioned this before in other formats. You know, I've been pitching the show for several years. And after I saw, you're familiar with The Staircase. So I saw The Staircase, and I was sitting with my wife, and I said, this would be a really great comedy. At the time, I said, if Stephen Carell could play Mike Peterson, what a great comedy this would be. And I ran it over to Warner Brothers, and the development executive women there did not think a comedy about a man killing his wife would be sellable. And I pitched it year after year, and I said, I'm telling you, the characters are so well defined and so funny, and we need addictive comedy right now. We need something where the stakes are so high that's serialized. And finally, they gave into it. They said, "All right, let's do it. You can try that as long as you do a multi-camera comedy, a family comedy as well," which I did, which is the show that just filmed now called Relatively Happy. But NBC bought it and loved it, and they continue to love it up and down. So we had an unbelievable pitch for season 2. We're totally, just everything is going to be just even better in season 2. There's going to be 2 crimes, and there's going to be, hopefully, God willing, they pick it up. But there's going to be more characters. We're going to expand the town and just meet more of the people in the town, so I'm usually cautiously pessimistic about things in TV, but I think everybody came away from that meeting very excited.
Okay, so that's really good news. Just wait and cross finger that they just pick it up.
That's all we want, because I'm ready to go. And look, the show was designed that every year there's going to be a new star and a new crime, and that's what they bought, and it's just a matter of getting people to see this. But I came away very happy.
Okay, good. So we started with new things about Trial. So it's a bit one of my questions, I think. But we're going to start really the interview about just introducing yourself.
Okay.
So you made quite a lot of sitcoms, mainly. I didn't see any other style or genre than the sitcoms.
So yes, I've been doing this year in December will be my 25th year actually as part of the Writers Guild. I saw that, and I started out in sitcoms. I've only done sitcoms in my 25 years. I've actually only done multi-camera sitcoms. I don't know if you know the difference. A multi-camera sitcom is in front of a live audience. The most famous I worked on I was at Friends at the beginning for the first 2 seasons of Friends. Actually wrote the first episode of Friends that wasn't the pilot, where Phoebe finds a thumb in her soda, called The One with the Thumb. And then the other, I've worked on a lot of, you could check my resume will eat up your data plan. And then last year for the first time, 2 years ago, I worked on my first single camera show called Angie, Tribeca, because a friend of mine was running that show, a friend of mine from Friends, Ira Ungerleider, and he said, hey, would you help me out? Because I love that type of Police Squad and Airplane and Zucker Brothers humor. I love silly humor. And I said, sure. And I did that. And then I didn't realize that would just change my really creative life forever because I loved it so much. And then when I pitched Trial and Error, which is a single camera, I love the genre. You can go so much deeper and it's so much funnier. And we actually shot this show using documentary filmmakers. So it's to have that authentic look. So I've only done comedy. The closest I've ever come to drama is Trial and Error. And a few years ago, because when the comedy market was getting really sparse, I asked my agent, maybe I should do drama. And he said, no way. He said, you just can't. My skill is I'm stuck in the life and the body of a comedy writer. So that said, if for some reason Trial and Error didn't come back, I would experiment with drama next year because I really I like the storytelling.
Yeah, you want to try some new things, some putting you in danger with some new genre, maybe.
I feel like, as with a lot of things right now in television, I feel like I feel like the genres are blending now, and I feel like there's not like a pure Trial and Error. There are some pure comedies, but Trial and Error, I wanted to appeal to that because it's a very dark show. If you've seen all of it, it's like people die, and this is a guy on trial for murder, and the stakes are life and death, and I love that about it. But even the other shows that I watch, even it's very hard to find a pure drama. Like the show I'm watching now, if you look at Breaking Bad was it really broke the mold in terms of a very dramatic show that was also had funny moments. Game of Thrones has comedy in it, and I think that the line is blurred so much now that I don't think I would ever do a procedural law show because that just bores the hell out of me. But I would put a comedy spin on an hour long, and I think that's what has come out of all these channels and all these outlets is that the lines now are completely bent. And in fact, I don't watch. There aren't that many comedies that I'm watching right now. I'm watching the dramas that the shows I'm watching now are dramas.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe you watch some. We called it. I don't know if you called it in English like that. We call it dramedy.
Yes, a dramedy.
Dramedy, You're the Worst. That's one of the one that comes from my head. That is really funny but really dark as well.
Right. So I have to get into You're the Worst. There's so much. I just candidly, I just discovered The Americans. And so I'm just been binge watching The Americans, which is fantastic, which isn't a lot of comedy, but it's unbelievable. I hear great things about You're the Worst. I want to watch that. I'm watching Legion, Fargo. And again, Fargo is another show that has elements of comedy in it.
Oh, yeah.
As does Legion. But that is definitely my type of show. Catastrophe is more funny than dramatic, but there's certainly drama in it, and really, it's anything with high stakes I'm enjoying, and that's why it's very difficult for me to go back to the multi-camera format, is because the stakes are usually not as high. It's you're watching a play, and everything gets resolved in 22 minutes. I like the fact that that things don't get resolved so easily. and there's ethical dilemmas, and I think that audiences are so sophisticated now that that's what makes a show appealing.
Yeah, sure. But that was again one of my questions, because the second one was about it's 25 years now, and you made a lot of sitcoms, but the genre evolved a lot, because there is, like we said, there is not really only funny shows. Yeah, we have Angie Tribeca that is really funny and no drama at all.
Yes.
Even for me, Trial and Error, it's dramatic because there are some murder, there is some difficult case, but it's so funny that even the murder are funny.
Well, that's what we did. What we wanted to do was, because if you watch The Staircase is the characters are so extreme in it, and so many of these documentaries. I mean, I've been binge watching, honestly, in preparation for season 2. I've been binge watching a lot of true crime, and the characters are so extreme. And really, all comedy is you're taking an extreme character and you're just turning it 15 degrees, and that's really all Trial and Error is. But I think just because there's so much more information now available to people, and we're exposed to news, and the news almost always seems to be bad now. I think people have built up a tolerance just to pure silliness and pure, and I think people have become more sophisticated, and I think that's good. I think that's why we're seeing peak TV now, is because people's minds have just been opened up more, and it's just really like this is I moved out to LA in the golden age. I was an investment banker in New York, and basically in the late 80s, investment banking was on the downtrend, and TV writing was on the uptrend, because don't forget, you had, like, in the early 90s when I came out to LA, that's when, like, Friends and Seinfeld were happening, and that was the golden age of the multicam, and this is the golden age, I think. Really, it's the best television that's ever been now, and I think it's hard. I think it's hard to capture that same audience with a multi-camera right now because of that, because single camera looks cooler and better, but everybody wants a successful multi-cam because there's more money in it.
They maybe want a comedy that looks more realistic, or more less theatrical, that, like, with the multi-camera, it just looks like, okay, it's been made for an audience, in front of an audience, and more, less realistic than the single one.
I mean, it's, the truth is nobody knows what works. Like, if I knew what worked, I'd be so far out of here already. I would have hit my payday and left. Nobody knows what works. Everything is, because everything you see on TV, somebody thinks that the talking dog is going to be the thing that everybody relates to, or that, you wouldn't predict that a bunch of nerds was going to be the best selling show in history, or Seinfeld. You still can't go in and use Seinfeld as a model of doing a TV show, because it was an anomaly. Friends, don't forget, Friends was 6 failed actors getting together who became the most famous, show in the world. So nobody knows what works. It's all lightning in a bottle. And if you hit the zeitgeist at the right time, then you're lucky. If not, you keep trying.
Yeah, that's the only things to do, is to keep trying, to keep faith on what you do.
Yes, you can't just try to, and everybody, I've been trying to do pilots and filming pilots for years, and everybody says, well, what's in right now is family sitcom. Everybody wants a diverse family sitcom. Well, they don't know. They're just guessing that, because the networks would be more successful if they knew.
Yeah, because it works on ABC, so they think it will work on every channel or network. Right,
and so I never like to do that. I always write what's in my what I have a burning passion to write, and and Trial and Error was something I've wanted to write for a long time, and it's fun to write, and it makes me think in a different way, and it's kind of like reinvigorated me and creatively. So and it was picked up because it was in the zeitgeist because of Making a Murderer and Serial. And the Jinx. So I lucked out timing-wise, but we had it written before any of those shows.
I think, you just hit the right time, because I think it was like 10 years that you were trying to sell that show, or the idea of the show?
No, for 4 or 5 years.
Okay. I know you just discovered the documentary 10 years ago or more, but yeah, with now the Jinx or those kind of show, it's easier to sell a show that is mocking the first.
Right, and also, which is very interesting though, our audience, when they test these shows to death, and the audience that watch the show, and still, if you look at like Twitter and stuff, people still do not necessarily, only a small part of the audience is familiar with the true crime format. A lot of the people compare the show to Parks and Rec, and will say, oh, this is a Parks and Rec spinoff. To be honest, I watch a little of Parks and Rec, but I'm not in that really camp of people. I like Parks and Rec. After the first season, I've watched, I like it. I like the style, but this was never meant to be a Parks and Rec type show. It only happened to be, it was meant to be a mockumentary. But more people compare it to Parks and Rec and compare Eastpak to Pawnee, which is fine. I'll be compared to any successful show. Once people, I think, really hook into the true crime element of it, I think that it's going to give us a whole new audience.
Yeah, but I think for the Parks and Recreation, because when we talked about your show on my podcast, it was one of the things I used the true crime, I used the Parks and Recreation because of the when they look at the camera, the town where they are, there is a lot of similarities, but that's not a bad thing. But if it helps people to try it, but maybe it's also a bad thing that, it's not really like.
We wanted to create something completely new, and I think those are the shows that really make it. I'll tell you something interesting. So when we first pitched this, nobody knew what to do. You have to go to a studio first, and then the studio takes it out to the networks. Nobody knew what to make of this show. It's like we've never done, you can't do, there's never been a comedy about murder. There's never been, at this point, a serialized comedy. They don't like that. This true crime format has never been kind of mocked. So they didn't know what to make of it. And the selling point, finally, I said, it's The Office that takes place in a taxidermist. They were like, yes, we love that. Because they knew. And they're like, yes, The Office that takes place in a taxidermist. So quickly it was obvious that was not the show. But they originally wanted us to pitch office stories. And, you see that they try to do that with Powerless, and it didn't stick. You can't just make something an office comedy in a crazy place. There has to be a raison d'etre, to use your language, for a show. And this show is it's not just an office comedy. There are office comedy elements. But for me, the fun stuff is people reacting, to unbelievably intense situations in a comedic way and to murder. And so I will take the Parks and Rec of it because our director also directed, I think, probably 30 Parks and Recs and a bunch of The Offices, and has won Emmys for The Office. And also because I'm a huge fan, especially the British Office, my favorite show in history. And but when we tested the show again with random people, a third of the audience didn't know why why the actors were talking to them. So that's what we're up against. We're up against people who don't know why there are little people inside their TV talking to them. So, there's a lot of challenges that you don't expect.
I didn't know that some people just don't know why they are talking to me. Breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, they didn't know the breaking the fourth wall. And our show also has very specific rules because we have a documentary filmmaker as one of the executive producers, the director, Jeff Blitz. When we came in, we originally had the character of the filmmaker in it. And the director then sat with us and said, well, that brings up a host of problems about the type of person that would put themselves in it. When was this shot? Are you looking at daily footage? Is this a finished documentary? And then, because we have these very specific rules that I don't know, like Modern Family, there are no rules to the documentary. I don't think people know it's a documentary. The Office, apparently, also the kind of confessionals come in a separate, different type of time frame. And we have rules about the documentary because this is a documentary film crew, which we may meet in a further season. But we want to adhere to the rules more of a documentary and less of a sitcom.
Okay, good. On the whole career, what were your most or least memorable moments you had? The things that you always remember, even the good or the bad things.
What are we talking? You're talking about my career or in the show?
First, the career.
Okay, so I will tell you that the Trial and Error has been a career highlight for me. Across the board, it was very, very. The idea was pure. It was easy. The cast came together wonderfully, and up until this very second, it's my career highlight. Career lows, I've had so many of them, and you never know. You never know what's going to happen. Obviously, Friends. At the time, I went out for Friends. I had worked on a show called Duckman, which was an animated show starring Jason Alexander, and that wasn't renewed right away, and there were two shows I wanted to get on. One was called, it wasn't Flying Blind, it was Blue Skies, and starring these three hot actors at the time that I couldn't, Corey Parker maybe and someone else. And the other show was Friends, and I desperately wanted to get on Blue Skies because I thought that's the show that has the future. And then I got on Friends, and that changed my career forever, because I was on the ground floor of something that was wonderful. So I think in terms of notoriety, being on Friends in the beginning is also unbelievable. When I would pitch jokes, and then you would see those jokes on buttons, that people would be wearing them on buttons, and people would be quoting them, and in magazines and on the cover, and Julia Roberts started dating Matthew Perry because he was so funny. I'm like, wait, I write his stuff. What are you talking about? What about me? So you get to be kind of a Cyrano. So I think working on Friends was unbelievable. I was also in my 20s, so it was, I was filled with vigor and energy. I was not as refined as I am today, but that was an unbelievable experience. And then I've worked on shows, and I don't want to name names, where the person who was doing the show did not know what the show was about. And there was a time when I was on this one show and nobody knew what the show was about. And we worked until 3 or 4 in the morning. And, I have a family now. I have 2 kids and a wife. And I just went bananas. I told my agent, you have to get, even if this means not getting paid, I have to get off this show. Thankfully, it was canceled. But the career lowlights are always the shows where the showrunner does not know what he or she is doing, or if they hate their family and they don't want to go home, because you could work unbelievable hours. Friends, we worked unbelievable hours, but you're writing Friends, you're writing what would become an iconic show, and the showrunners on that show were unbelievable. But I would say career lowlights are working late hours for a show that is not well reviewed and is not well, just not critically thought of, and that it's just a job. When this job becomes just a job, then it's terrible. And everyone thinks, oh, you must have the best job. It's an extraordinarily stressful job. But when you're doing something you love, it's, you feel like an artist. When you're not, you feel like you're just a soap salesman, because that's what, they remind you that basically you need 4-minute acts so the car commercials don't hit each other. So at the end of the day, I'm a car salesman. But when I feel like an artist, that's good. When I feel like a car salesman, with all due respect to car salesmen, I shouldn't be working those kind of late hours and having that kind of stress to be a car salesman. So I think that's a long answer without being specific.
Thank you. You just talked about the fact to see your joke wear as buttons or on T-shirts and things. Here, I think one of the joke from a Trial and Error that just come all the time when I read things about it, it's motherboard.
Yes. So
where did it get from? Because it just came like an inside joke.
It's very funny, because I didn't know, that did become kind of like a meme. And I don't know, we were just pitching it, and I just thought it would be funny if I just love, I don't know if there's such a thing as a murder board. I know there's such a thing as a murder book, and I knew there's a murder book, and we didn't say anything about that. And then I said, I want to do something, I want to have another board, and I want to call it the murder board, where you pin things to. And I just said it would be really funny if Dwayne started chanting murder board, and then Josh was like, this is an office. and then Anne started chanting murder board, and then the actors had so much fun with it, and then Larry starts chanting it, and then the director who directed that episode where they're dancing to it, that was Jeff Blitz. You know, when they're all chanting it together, and just like the fun of people dancing and doing the Macarena while chanting murder board is just so absurd, and it really embodied everything of the show. So I think that was one thing that was like, it's like you can't plan a viral video. Like, that was just something that like happened, and you know, it really only appeared in 2 episodes where they said murder board, and but you know, if I get hit on stuff like that all day, I'll do it, because it's just chanting murder board is such a silly thing, and it just worked. I don't know where any of my ideas come from, but that one specifically, I just thought it would be funny if because a thing in the show which I like is I like Josh trying to be the serious one when silly things are happening, and you see that theme over and over again. So Josh slowly being pulled in to that world is just great, and murder board was just a lucky joke. I mean, it's not even a joke. Like, there are some jokes on the show which I think are spectacular. And you know, one of the jokes I was talking about today was the joke about when Larry comes out of the mental institution and says, I thought it was distasteful. Didn't you think it was distasteful to have pictures of men murdering their wives all over the place? And Summer says, those were Rorschach tests. And I thought that's such an unbelievable joke. My writer, Bill Callahan, came up with that joke. And that's just like, that is just such a home run joke. And that's like a joke that you don't expect. Murder board is just something that wound up being great because of the performance.
Yeah, and there is so much joke, and I've seen, to be honest, I've seen the full show like four times.
Oh, wow.
Already.
Right.
Because I was waiting to see the new episode, so I just rewatched again and again, because each time I was discovering new things.
And by the way, there is stuff all throughout. You know, there's also like little Easter eggs in the main title. One thing I wanted to do, like, we talked about, most shows don't have main titles, you know, like the music. Most shows don't have those anymore, if you notice, because the screen time has gotten so short. But I noticed in the shows that I love, I always watch the main title. It always gets you excited for the show. And Game of Thrones is the biggest example of that. Like, I pause to see what's changing, and you know, in Winterfell, and like what's the episode. So I said I want to do a board with clues on it, and every week the last card changes, and that's a clue as to what's going to happen in the episode. So the last picture. So I like stuff like that. There's also stuff written on the board that are clues, and all throughout, if you notice that there are, in every episode there are owls. Every single episode there are owls in it.
Yeah, without spoiling for people that they didn't see the full show.
But yes,
the first time we see Dwayne, there was already a clue that I just get by finishing the season, because it was so I don't really remember what he said. He was talking about birds fly, that was one of the pitches, original things that we loved, that the show would be bookended. But there's all sorts of things, like we use everything, and there are tons of background jokes. One thing when you watch again is when Larry's being interviewed at Peck Island Prison, in the deep background, somebody is getting killed as he's talking, and you have to look in the deep background as 2 prisoners go up and they shank a third guy who's slowly dying throughout the scene. It.
You did notice it? Good for you. So there's all sorts of things. If you look at, like, the animals always have like reactions. There's always jokes for, you know, there's always stuff going on in the taxidermist. Like, we really wanted to do this show on like so many different levels. And did you notice on the bus bench where Anne was, that it said hiss for mayor?
No. That one, no.
Okay, so go back and watch. In the finale, Anne's sitting on a bench, and one of the ads is for hiss for mayor because he's in a coma. And if you recall, their most famous mayor, Sleepy Johnson, was in a coma. So that's like another little joke show.
I've also noticed that the house number of Larry's was 187, like the penal code.
Okay, so That is really funny, and that is, I think I just picked a random number and I didn't know that. And people, there's so many of those things like that. And like people say Carolyn Keene is the pseudonym for Nancy Drew, who is Carolyn Keene. I just liked a 3-word name. I wanted the k sound in her name because she's sharp, and I like Caroline Keene. I thought like just a sound that would run together like that. Like that's what that was. It wasn't named after that. People, the 187 people pointed out. People pointed out that our episode that aired on 420, Larry talked about growing weed in his yard. That was complete accident. There's some other things I forgot, but people point out, Henderson, that it's from Harry and the Hendersons. You know, John was the best possible choice for this show, but the part was not written for him.
So I've seen the thing that way. Yeah, it's about the movie because he played in it, and also Dwayne Reed because of the Dwayne Reed pharmacy. But
so Dwayne Reed pharmacy was because of that. But then this show, The Night Of, had a character called Dwayne Reed, and our show was done filming when The Night Of premiered. Okay. And people thought like, we borrowed from The Night Of, and we borrowed other stuff. I don't know. Have you seen The Night Of?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Night Of is brilliant. I love The Night Of. We borrowed from that for other things. The Caroline Keene's Rash, for example, we borrowed from that. But Dwayne Reed was a character. You know, my partner Matt Miller had the idea of naming a character Dwayne. He said, I like the name Dwayne as a Southern name. I said, then let's call him Dwayne Reed. And that was a good way to – it was just a funny inside joke. There's also, which you probably wouldn't know, there was a You're Killing Me, Larry, when Larry throws the guy in the animated commercial for Eastpak Glass. There was a commercial out here for, I think, mattress salesman, and one of them is always going, "You're killing me, Larry," and that's like an homage to that. But it's a local commercial in LA that we pay an homage to. So there's some things that were purposeful and other things that were just, again, happy accidents. But I love the 187 thing. I'm going to try to do that this year with in the address for the new suspect because it's I love it.
About the show, there is things that you heard that wasn't true, or people didn't really get it, or like here with the Caroline Keene, they just guessed that it was like that, but it's not true. There is other things like that you heard or read about that that wasn't true.
Really, the 187 was it, and like I said, Harry and the Hendersons was a tribute to that, and you know his real name is Harry. Mm-hmm. He has a brother Harry. They said Harry and the Hendersons. That wasn't true. I forget the other ones, and again, the 420 pot show that we did was just an accident. There's a lot of like different conspiracy theories about the show. Some of which are true and some of which are not. There are a lot of tributes to the staircase in it, including seeing the blowpoke in the final episode. Mm-hmm. We were going to do leading even harder into that, where I wanted to put the picture from the staircase of the cat at the bottom of the staircase, but we thought we were getting too close to being sued. So, and especially now that Michael Peterson's out of prison, I don't want to cause any trouble.
Yeah, sure. After wrapping the first season, how do you feel? You feel that you made something really big, something that was perfect for you, or you were like, maybe I can change that or redo that, or?
I do not. It's funny because the head of our studio said, when you go into pitch a season 2, you should always say, this is the mistakes I made. I do not. I would have any frame of this show represent me in the world. I loved every moment of it. I think the actors, the directors, the art people, every single person brought the maximum to this. The writers, there's nothing I would change about this show. And I think it's going to be one of those shows that when people discover it, it's going to be, if it were on Netflix, I feel like people would binge it and everyone would be talking about the show. And, you even see that on Twitter, people are like, what, how come no one's talking about this show? So I don't regret anything about it. I think this was a good intro into the world. Next year, like I said, we're going to have, the verdict is going to happen in the middle of the show. because a lot of people, what we've heard is people like, well, am I going to really stick around for a verdict? And, is there going to be a verdict? I think people didn't know what the format was now. So next year, there's going to be 2 different crimes. There's going to be that intersect. There's going to be a verdict towards the first half of the show. And we're going to also expand the world a little bit. We're going to meet the DA that Caroline Keene is running against. We'll meet probably Dwayne's brother, cousin. I just want to expand the world now. Now that we have these great characters, you don't have to spend so much time setting them up. We just want to see more of East Peck. And there are whole different pockets of East Peck that I have thought of that we haven't even gotten to yet. So, I think this was a good start. This show is meant to be 13 episodes just because it leaves you wanting more.
And the second season will be also for 30 episode or 13 episode, or
Yes,
okay.
the plan is for 13 episodes. Because in these if you watch any true crime documentary, even though they're hour-long episodes, there's only so many case beats you can do. There's only so much time. Next year we'll probably spend a little less time in the courtroom. We got bogged down in the courtroom a little bit this year, but I love the courtroom. I love the judge. I love the jury was spectacular. But these things, there's only so many twists where it starts to get repetitive. I mean, this is like, our idea was, in the season finale, we shot 49 scenes, and for a 22-minute show, that's incredible. I like a show that moves very, very fast, and you compress a lot so that people like you can watch it several times and then catch it. I'm sure you noticed the bear in the final episode, which is one of my funnest things I've ever done.
That's the bear was one of the thing that gets me to want to watch the show, because on the poster you get behind you,
yes,
just seeing all the name of the character and seeing the bear called the bear,
yes.
I just okay, this one is going to crack me up all time.
Yes.
And it just works like that, and it was even more than what I was expecting in fact.
And people are saying that too about the show. It's not like every moment of the show was thought out, and next season, every moment will be thought out. And in the beginning of the year, John Lithgow was the only person who knew whether or not his character was guilty. And I'm not going to give any spoilers away for the people who haven't seen it yet. But we asked him when we first met him, before we started working with him, we said, do you want to know whether or not your character did it? And he thought for a second, and he said, I do want to know. And so we told him, and we said, this is what happened. And he said, I will never betray that. I will never let you know if I'm innocent or guilty. And I said, that's exactly right. And we don't want to know. And so the cast every week would get these scripts, and then they would be like, oh my God, I'm a suspect. Oh my God. So the cast also was in the dark, and the cast did not know until the final episode what happened, except for John. So and John said, because we pitched that to them, they said, is there a possibility that you'll change that? And I said, there's a possibility, if the crime takes us a different way, then we will, but we like knowing what happens at the end. Because also a lot of times I feel like there are shows like the show Lost, which didn't seem to be designed for as many seasons, because the end for me was so disappointing. And a lot of shows, the endings of the shows are so disappointing because it's like the writers never got a chance to, really, the story got away from them, so they couldn't land it. Like this is with 13 episodes, we're going to land this story and every question will be answered.
Yeah, because I really thought that the anthology kind of filming and writing is just perfect for that kind of case, because you have a start, a hand, and that's it. And you have no surprise or no loss in rhythm, or it gets less funny with the time maybe, and yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. And next year we're going to mix things up again a little bit more, just because I never want to get stuck in just in a rut and predictable. Next year also what we're going to do is, hopefully we're going to put in crime recreations, which we didn't do this year, like in the Thin Blue Line or Dateline or these other ones. But they're going to be done by the cast of the show from the East Peck players. So which we think will be just like characters that you've seen before, will be recreating these horrific crimes, which I think is just going to add a whole new level of comedy to the show.
I just, I can't wait to see that just happen.
Because Anne trying not to laugh as something horrible happens in front of her will just be great. And Dwayne, with the big mustache as a villain will be, I can't wait.
Yeah. Is there some, during the production, weird moment or things that just went wrong and you have to completely change the scene or everything?
So yes, I'll tell you a good example of that. Again, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. In the golf episode, Right Hand Man. So we want to do an episode where Dwayne runs into the lake at the golf course, and then he comes out with what he finds. He doesn't find the murder weapon; he finds something else. So that was written in the beginning. We love that idea, and that, by the way, that storyline was also inspired by a documentary called Finders Keepers about a guy who found a foot in his. He found a foot in a smoker that he bought, and we love the idea of that, of like who owns the missing limb. So we didn't quite take that to the extreme, but anyway, so we wanted to do this. He runs in, he splashes around, and then he comes up with this item from the lake. When we got to the lake at the golf course, because we shot that at an actual golf course, because of the health department rules or whatever SAG rules, the Screenwriters Guild, they need to test the water first to see if you can put an actor in it. And they tested the water and it came back highly toxic. So we're like, what are we going to do? And everyone's saying, well, we can't do the scene. I was like, no, we have to do the scene. So the actor, meanwhile, Steven, is like freaking out. He's like, how toxic? I'm like, can we put a stunt double in there? Do they have a worse union? Maybe you could throw a stunt double. It's like, no, you can't put a human being in that. You can only put a human being in that water up to their knees. So you get an idea of like how disgusting the water is. So I said, okay, so what if we put some reeds there and you just see him go in, he goes in up to his knees, and then the camera cuts away to something else, and then you come back and he's soaking wet and he comes out with this thing. The director, who's a documentary filmmaker, said, you can't do that. I said, why? He said, because if a character in a documentary runs into a lake, the camera will only follow that person. There's nothing they're going to cut to. And I said, well, maybe we break the rules. And he said, we can't break the rules on that. And then he said, what if there was an alligator? As the director said, now, if there was an alligator or a crocodile in the lake, then we can cut to that. So we had to get a crocodile for the lake. So we had to tell a producer now, the producer who wanted nothing. The producer is the person who has to pay for all this. And like, you're kidding me. We have to get a crocodile. So we got an animatronic crocodile for the lake, so that or alligator. I don't know if it was crocodile or alligator. I think it was alligator. And so you see that scene. You'll notice there's an animatronic alligator that the camera goes to that. And while the camera goes to that, we spray down, Steven, so that you don't realize that he's only in up to his shins. So that was great. And that was just because we had a great director who was authentic, made us think, made us go that extra level.
You get creative when there's things that goes wrong or not the way you're thinking. Yeah.
Right. And just one other example, a good thing about the show, I'd say a quarter of the show was actually shot at the end of the season, because we realized the show, we shot too many scenes and the story didn't track. So we would shoot confessionals. Whenever you see like Josh in his office or Dwayne or these little scenes, these were just stories that, because we would have to cut out big pieces, we would have to stitch together with Josh saying, and this is what happened, or Steven saying this is what happened. And there was one episode, I don't want to say which one, there was one episode that came out so bad. And like we looked at it and we said we didn't know what the episode was about. And so the director said, what do you want the episode to be about? I told him. He said, let me look with the footage, let me put the footage together. And then there were big spaces in between it. So then I wrote scenes that would bridge those big scenes that we were missing. and it wound up being one of our best episodes. And you don't know that, but for me, that was a lot of heartache and a lot of work having to go back and reshoot an entire half of an episode while we're shooting other episodes. And it's production nightmare, but we got it done. So yes, it's all that stuff all the time.
And are you planning to get the show on Blu-ray, DVD with bonuses or? So
just when you said that, we cut so many scenes from this show. Each episode has probably like 3 or 4 scenes that are missing, that are just hilarious, that we have, but that we didn't air. I'm just working with NBC now to put all of that online. So, and there's also an amazing blooper reel and a season 2 tease. So I don't know any of that. The business is so segmented between the online departments, the marketing departments, the digital department. Everything is so segmented. But NBC digital department is amazing. I don't know if there's going to be Blu-ray with that. I would love to do that and have commentaries. I don't know what the future is for that, but I can tell you that as we speak, literally as we speak, there's probably an hour of extras that are coming out your way.
Oh, that's a good news. Really good news. Because in comedy that you have to reshoot things, and bloopers in comedy can be really good. And I think here the cast was feeling like a small family. I'm sure that it's going to be bloopers gold.
Yes, it is wonderful. I should actually we put together a blooper reel. I should find out where that is, because that's magic. I'm actually going to find out that way. So, Frederick, do you have any last questions? Did I have another call?
Yeah. Just a small question. If you can talk about Relatively Happy right now, or
yeah. So I'm about to get on a call with the network. Like I said, at the same time that I wrote Trial and Error, I wrote a show called Relatively Happy, and it was for CBS. And CBS was relatively unhappy with it, so they didn't pick it up. And it's a brother-sister comedy, and it's a 4-camera comedy, and it's also a little bit dark. And that was because I have a very strong relationship with my sister, and as adults, and we're very, very close now, even though we weren't so close as kids. And we had a very colorful past, so I wanted to write that story, and I wrote it with a guy named Max Muchnick, who created Will and Grace. And when Will and Grace came back, Max thought, you know what, this is the perfect companion piece for that. So we sold it to NBC, and we just shot it. And, I don't want to compete with Trial and Error at all. That's my firstborn. But we're very happy about it. It's very exciting. So look for that.
That was one of the things I've seen just before doing the interview, the news about that. And I was following the project since it was called Happy Peppers, I think.
It was called the Happy Peppers, and they didn't like that name. Interestingly, the original name of Trial and Error was The Trail.
I like the title, like because Anne used it also in the first episode.
That's what it was. It was called The Trail. That's why, in fact, we came up with that, because when she writes The Trail, that was the title. We loved it. Somebody at NBC who has this decision-making power said, I don't like it. And we said, I called up the head of the studio. I said, this is the line. I'm not changing this. And he said, if they want to call it Bob's TV Law Show, that's what you call it. So we got all these departments together, and the title, I have a list of the titles they wanted to use for the show that are so comic, but Trial and Error now seems to fit the show well. So anyway, hopefully millions of people will discover it.
Okay, thank you. I don't going to take your time more if you have another call, but thank you for your time. I had like a real blast just talking to you. It's really funny.
If you have any other questions or anything, please feel free to call me, email me anytime, and we'll do it, because this is great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Frederick. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.